Hi there. This is Engage New York, Module 4, Lesson 20. Read the objective while I read it out loud. I can convert mixed unit measurements and solve multi-step multi-step word problems. All right, so this is taking what we worked on the last lesson, and we're not necessarily going to be going from smaller units to bigger units. We're going to be able to flip back and forth between smaller and bigger, or smaller and larger and smaller, going back and forth between the two and seeing the difference on how to solve. All right, but before we begin, let's start a little fluency practice. This is actually going to prepare us for lesson 21. So it's real easy. Just play along with me. Let's count by ones to 10. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, let's count by halves to 10 halves. So 1 half, 2 halves, 3 halves, 4 halves, 5 halves, 6 halves, 7 halves, 8 halves, 9 halves, 10 halves. All right, from there, let's count by halves again. But this time, when we arrive at a whole number, say the whole number. So 1 half, 1 whole, 3 halves, 2 wholes, 5 halves, 3 wholes, 7 halves, 4 wholes, 9 halves, 5. All right, from here, let's count halves again, but this time change the improper fractions to mixed numbers. Okay, so these improper fractions to mixed numbers. So a half, 1, 1 and a half, 2, 2 and a half, 3, 3 and a half, 4, 4 and a half, 5. All right, were there any patterns that you noticed? Anything that kind of stands out to you? Starting at those halves, that the 2 halves are really 1 whole, the 3 halves become the 1 and a half, 4 halves become 2, 5 halves become 2 and a half, 6 halves become 3, 3 stays a whole number. Anyway, just a question. It's just, do you notice any patterns within counting and going from halves to wholes? All right, this little activity here is kind of reviewing what we just did in lesson 19 and continues what we're going to be doing in lesson 20. So what I want you to do is I want you to take a minute. I want you to go through and make those conversions, come back to check your work. All right, how did you do? 1 foot is 12 inches, 2 feet is 24 inches. And then we have, let me jump down here. 3 feet is equal to 1 yard. 6 yards is equal to 18 feet. I multiplied by 3. Then we have 4 feet is equal to, we have 2 feet is 24 inches. 4 feet is equal to 48 inches. I multiplied by 12. Then here, 1 gallon is equal to 4 quarts. Well, 9 gallons is equal to 36 quarts. I multiplied by 4. So I go back to what I know and then multiply, right? Okay, 1 pint is equal to 2 quarts. So 7 pints is equal to 14 cups. All right. All right, so we know that's true because there are 2 cups in 1 pint, right? All right, let's keep going. Now, this fluency activity is going to review lessons 17 and 18 as well. So I want you to go through. I want you to see how you do. This is your little practice, taking your temperature to see how you're doing with these ideas, and come back and check your work. All right, so let's take a look to see how you did. So remember, no numbers behind the decimal, no numbers behind the decimal. 1 number behind the decimal in the equation, in the expression, the equation, the solution here. So the equation, because there is the equal sign, 3 times 0.3, there's 1 number behind the decimal, 1 number behind the decimal. Are you seeing a pattern? one number behind the decimal and one number behind the decimal. So there are two numbers behind the decimal. How many numbers are going to be behind the decimal in the answer or solution? Two numbers behind the decimal, one number behind the decimal. How many numbers behind the decimal? Three altogether, right? 16, 1.6, 0.16, 0.016. So however, there many numbers are behind the decimal, that will be how many numbers are behind the decimal in the answer, right? 25, 2.5, 0.25, 0.025, 35, 3.5, 0.35, 0.035. That was not easy for me to say. All right, moving on. This is a review. Our next part of our fluency is reviewing lessons 12. So this is kind of going back to lesson 12, a little unit conversion again. Let's go through and see how you do. 2 feet. So let's start at the beginning. How many feet are in a yard? There are 3 feet in 1 yard, right? So let's just keep those things in mind. What do you know? So go through, solve these right here, and come back to check your work. See how you do. Do you remember how to solve that? Okay, so now 2 feet is equal to 2/3 of a yard. So let me show you what I did. So you can stop the video and look to see what I did for each one of them, but I wanted to show you how I got my fraction to make sure that you remember how to do this. Okay. So 3 feet is equal to 1 yard. So I cancel it out. So 1 foot is equal to 1/3 of a yard, right? So I went back to what we were doing before. 2 times 1 foot. So 2 times 1/3, 2/3. Then I have here 12 inches is equal to 1 foot. Remember, 1 inch is equal to 1/12 of a foot. So 5 times 1 inch. So 5 copies of 1 inch is 5 times 1/12, 5/12 of a foot. Then 1 inch is equal to 1/12 of a foot. Here, 1 ounce is equal to what fraction of a pound? So I know that 16 ounces is equal to 1 pound. So 1 ounce is equal to 1/16. Here, 9 ounces is equal to what fraction of a pound? 16 ounces is equal to 1 pound. Remember how we do this. 1 ounce is equal to 1/16 of a pound. 9 copies of 1 ounce. So 9 times 1/16 is 9/16. Then 2 pints is equal to 1 quart. I say 1 pint is equal to half a quart. So 1 pint is equal to half a quart. Here we have 2 pints is equal to 1 quart. So 1 pint is equal to a half a quart. So if I have 3 times 1 pint, 3 times 1 half is 3 halves, which is 1.5. Then 4 days is equal to what fraction of a week? 7 days is equal to 1 week. So 1 day is 1/7 of a week. 4 times 1 day, 4 times 1/7 is 4/7. Probably didn't need to do all that, but I wanted to be consistent and show you how I did that. So 24 hours in 1 day. So 1 hour is 1/24 of a day. So 18 copies of 1 hour is 18 times 1/24 is 18/24, which simplifies down to 3/4 of a day. Woo! Okay. Last bit of our fluency. Here we go. We have an application problem. And yes, you're going to use these ideas right here and apply it to a problem here. So a recipe calls for 3/4 pound of of cream cheese. A small tub of cream cheese weighs 12 ounces. Is this enough for the recipe? All right, try it out. Tell me what you come back with and check your answer. Okay. So I came over here. What do I know? I know 16 ounces is equal to 1 pound. I take it down. Because this becomes 1 ounce is equal to 1/16 of a pound. Come back over here. What am I solving for? 12 ounces is equal to question mark, right? How much of a pound? Well, 12 copies of 1 ounce. 12 times 1/16 is 12/16 simplifies down to 3/4 of a pound. It says the recipe calls for 3/4 of a pound of cream cheese. Does she have enough? The answer is yes, there is enough cream cheese. All right, that will do it for our fluency for lesson 20. Meet me back here for concept development, where we go through the lecture and we are going to start practicing going from larger units to smaller units and how we go about that.